There's more to relating than what we do on autopilot. So it's like we're all relating all the time. We're in relationship with each other, with nature, with the society we're living in. But there's some ways in which we can become more conscious of the relating that we're doing. How am I actually showing up? How am I listening? Well, in some way it is revolutionary to do these things because it runs counter to a hardness that exists in our culture, inviting more silence, inviting more awareness, inviting more intimacy, inviting more relating. That seems to be a revolutionary act these days.
The container is now open. Today we bring back on to the pod Peter Munthe-Kaas, who has for a year been working on an incredible project, relatingarts.com, which is a massive resource for all of these practices that get us into deep relating and deep connection with ourselves and each other. So the question today is, how do we get 1 million people to do these practices? How do we spread the good word of circling and all of the whole ecology of practices? One way to think about it is, imagine it's 1962 and you've never heard of yoga before. Well, there was some process where we went from basically most people who weren't in India had never heard of yoga. And then nowadays, everyone has heard of yoga, done yoga. There's yoga everywhere. You live within 2 blocks of a yoga studio. So how do we make relational practices as ubiquitous, as common, and as easy to understand as yoga? So Peter is coming on to help us figure that out. Before we launch into that conversation, one of the ways we help build these things is we support creators who spread the word. And you can do that for the container by going to thecontainerpod.com, and you can find out how to support us on Patreon. You can look at all of our links. And how else can you support us?
By leaving a comment on YouTube or writing a review on the podcast through Spotify or Apple Podcast, giving us, the rating that you believe we deserve.
Which is 5 out of 5. Let's be fair, folks.
Yeah, normally.
The glowing reviews really, really help the algorithm. So there's a lot of ways, whether by joining us on Patreon or by commenting, interacting with us, it all helps. And clicking on the links, like the links to relatingarts.com, that also helps. So I feel like I have to breathe out the businessman who does the intro.
Yes.
I have to exercise myself. Peter, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. A little bit worn. As I mentioned to you before we started, I just had a baby, and that's I wrote a thing recently that I called "Gaining a New Master," and it really feels that way. That it's like, okay, you've been working with relating in many serious ways for many years, and now there's a new human being that requires some deep relating in all the ways. So there's just something to attuning to a human that just came into the world that is very special and also a bit exhausting at times. But yeah, happy to be here and happy to have this conversation. It's like, it's been a year of working a lot with sort of what is this field? Is there even an ecology that we can call the relating arts, and where are the boundaries for that? How can we delineate that? and how can we, well, I say we, it has largely been me, and there is a larger group of people that are doing stuff as well. But like, how is it possible to spread these practices in a way that makes them a lot more accessible? At least that's the wish.
Yeah, I think a good place to begin for people who don't really know what the relating arts are, what is it that this movement that we're a part of, what are we doing? What are the relating arts? What's going on in these rooms?
Well, I guess if we put it really simply, it's like saying that there's more to relating than what we do on autopilot. So it's like we're all relating all the time. We're in relationship with each other, with nature, with the society we're living in. Like everything consists of relationships in some way. But there's some ways in which we can become more conscious of the relating that we're doing. So that's like, how am I actually showing up? How am I listening? For me, really, those two components are the central ones. And then just takes, for most people, it takes a lot of work to start sort of, noticing that something new is possible. It's different to be thinking about what I'm going to say next while I'm listening and to really be listening. It's a different game. It's a different game to actually tell the truth about what's going on in me than to do what most people do, like all people do at times at least, which is to sort of subtly manipulate to get what we want. And I think when most people come into this field, they have these experiences of like, whoa, there's a different level of intimacy. Sometimes it's called connection. I'm not that happy with the connection word these days, but there's another level of intimacy available in the connection with another human being that I didn't think was possible. And well, most people I've met who get that experience just have this like, whoa, so enriching, so valuable, and I want that more in my life. So for me, that's at the core of what I call the relating arts.
Something that really blew me away, and I think this was day one for me, was in day one of doing a relating practice with another person. Something that you just said stuck out, which is, can I tell the truth? Like, what if I actually tell the truth? And I think what I was confronted with very quickly was that I don't actually know what my truth is. Like, I've spent so much time waiting to, kind of be careful about the way that I respond, or to, that subtle manipulation, or trying to keep things smooth, that I forgot to ever check in with myself. And my mind was blown that I couldn't maintain direct eye contact with this person and tell the truth at the same time. Like, I had to look away so that I could say what was true, or, to kind of mine for it. And that actually was what sold me on. I was like, wow, first 10 minutes of a practice I've ever done. And I had this huge revelation about the way that I show up in with other people. Yeah.
I want to piggyback off that by saying that I think a lot of listeners who haven't done a lot of relating arts would hear that, and maybe they think, I'm like really honest. I just put my heart on my sleeve and I tell it like it is. And that was my experience of myself until I started to really seriously look at it in the moment in the relating arts and realizing, whoa, I am so hidden. Like, I am deeply, deeply hidden from myself and from others. And I didn't clock that for 30 years. I didn't clock that that's what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we all have our identifications, right? It's like we want to be in particular ways because we have somehow learned that that is the good way to show up in the world. So we want to be kind or gentle or nice or competent. Like I want to be competent. That continuously shows up for me. That like it's scary for me to show up in ways that might seem like I'm not competent. And like even in these practices that I've done for quite some years now, well, now I learned that competence can also be to show up with incompetence, but I'm still trapped in my sort of wanting to be competent in the way I'm being with people. And I think it's pretty healthy for most of us to take a good look at just, oh, okay, I'm apparently not comfortable with being angry, like bringing anger. That's just not a thing that I do, or it's really hard for me to be in contact with grief, or when someone hurts me or says something hurtful. I'm so accustomed to just taking it and sort of coping or managing it myself, and just seeing all of these ways in which we're patterned, and then just seeing that it's maybe possible to try something else. And often when we try that other thing, we have these experiences of, oh, people seem to like me more when I'm not trying to be really likable. And
that's the worst trick in the whole world is that when you try to be liked, you become less likable. That's just not fair.
Yeah, it's cruel.
So I feel really curious, just kind of back to the project, or I guess, yeah, where my mind goes is, where do you even start with this? It's just, there's so much, and we've experienced over the last several years of doing the container, that there are different lineages of the practice of circling, for example, that have emerged and changed and kind of geographically, and then there are facilitators and practitioners doing things that are sort of in the realm, but have different shades. And there's, from looking at the relatingarts.com, your website, I just think you've done this incredible job of gathering. So yeah, I just wonder if you wanted to talk a little more about the work you've put into it, or like some of the decisions you've made about how to compile. I feel curious around that.
Yeah, I guess what I can say that this kind of project has the risk of trying to be all encompassing or trying to be perfect in some way. And I think I've managed to give up on that and be a bit more pragmatic about it, where it's more like, what do I have access to? What do I hear about? What do other people that come into the project have access to? What have they heard about? Who do they know? Which practices do they like? So I guess you could have done something like this as a research project and sort of really looked at what are the lineages, how have they worked, who are the people, and so on. I'm doing it a bit more in sort of a snowbally way, that a thing arrives or sort of opens up, and then it's like, oh, there was a new community here. I recently talked to Kåre Landfald from the Zen coaching practice, who's now, they're talking about living presence as the core of their practice. And I just had this beautiful conversation with him where I was like, wow, I didn't know that this existed even. Like I met someone at a festival 2 years ago that said that she did it. And then I did a bit of circling with her and she was like, oh, this is very similar to what I do. And I was like, I never heard of these people. And they're in Scandinavia and they've been doing it for like 15 years. And there's a whole community. And there's lots of that out there. There's plenty of people doing really cool stuff with nuanced differences, but focused on presence, awareness, deep listening, showing up with each other. So like relating is always in there. It differs a bit how much it is at the core. And the project that I've sort of framed for myself is just wanting to map out as much of it as possible. So when something new comes into my view, I'm like, oh, let's see if they want to be on the page, or let's see if someone wants to write about that. And that's been quite a central part of the project for me also, to get people to write, like get practitioners to write, because most of the material out there that I've had access to before is schools. So it's like schools presenting their practice and how great their practice is. And not to say that their practices aren't great, they very likely are, and at least I've tried a lot of cool stuff. But what I wanted is more like stuff that is written more from the practitioner perspective. So if you go to the website and you look at the bios there, I've also insisted that the bios people write are first person perspective, like what has your journey been, rather than let me tell you how competent I am, because that would be my tendency. So it's like
Yeah, that those bios were something that really stuck out for me, was that like these are real people doing this practice and it's their lived experience, and it really gave me a sense of like at least a flavor, imagining myself as someone who's just coming across this page for the first time and going like, oh, okay, like this, and it's a little bit different for each one. And yeah, so I really appreciated that decision of the first person bio. So
yeah, and I think
it's yeah, it's okay. Go ahead.
It's just important for me to sort of get a little bit away from the I'm a perfect teacher that just knows everything about relating and I'm going to teach you because I've done this for 10, 15 years, and lean a little bit more into like, I'm just a regular idiot who stumbled upon some really cool tools, and I've done them quite a bit, and that has transformed my life quite a lot. And I really like this stuff, and I want to share it with the world. And
that sounds like us.
yeah, and that does seem to be most people in the field also.
Yeah.
And then the question is how to make it really available. And for now, I've been mostly focused on sort of mapping out some of the core practices, getting them on the page so you can read a bit about them. You have the links to the schools if you want to do it there. And what I would really like to do more of is guides, like try this at home guides. And not to say that there's not a lot of complexity in these practices. And it's like I've trained in authentic relating and circling and surrender leadership for 10 plus years now. And I can definitely see that my leadership capacity is quite different now than it was 10 years ago. So there's real skill in it. And I would really love for more people to just try it out with their friends. So invite 5 people into your living room and like, I just saw this guide on how to do a birthday circle. Can we just try that? See what happens? I would love more of that out there.
I love the it's such a low bar to get started, because I think a lot of people, when they hear about the relating arts, if they are interested in it, their first question is, how do I do it? And then the answer is, well, go to this event where everyone else has been doing this a lot together and learn it, with all of these totally natural human tendencies towards feeling like an outsider in that situation, or feeling kind of awkward or scared or intimidated. And then in that situation, try out something that might bring you into emotional vulnerability in a way you've never experienced before. It's like, it's a lot. It's a huge bar for some people to clear. You can do it online, then that's probably a little bit lower bar doing it on Zoom, but still Zoom circling and other relational arts can be like very intimidating too. I love this idea of, of having more resources where people can kind of engage it in their own way at their own level, or not level, but like in their own kind of language and the way that they interact with their friends and people sitting down and just kind of getting started. And it doesn't have to be like a perfect birthday circle. Let's just get started with thinking of relating that way.
Yeah, something I've really enjoyed is just question games. Like I've made series of these question cards. So it's just like, just take a question and ask your neighbor that question, and then it's like designing questions that just go a little bit more into the personal relational than what we usually ask each other, and then we have more interesting conversations. So it's like, when did you last get really angry?
That is really touching for me into this question of accessibility, which really connects to the fundamental work we're doing here today, which is how do we get 1 million people to try the relating arts this year? How do we get them to circle and go to authentic relating and do all of these different practices? And I think one of them is just to have more resources where people can, in a right-sized, unintimidating way, engage with it. It doesn't have to be everyone goes to a circling retreat or something. There's
it has this complexity that now we used yoga as sort of the comparison here, and I think the relating practice has the same kind of complexity where it's like, well, in some way yoga is pretty simple, right? It's like there's a couple of core movements that you do, and then you feel a bit better in your body, and everybody can kind of learn that in a day, and you can do it at home. Then you know the first sun salutation or whatever, and then it's also a life practice, and wildly complex and advanced, and it's really not about the movement at all. It's about how you're present with yourself and your breath and in connection with everything around you, and so on and so forth. And it's a bit similar with these things, but I think we tend to make it a little bit too mystical. That it just becomes a bit weird sometimes. That it's like, oh, it's about these deep mystical experiences, and it's about deep intimacy. And we use deep a lot, and we talk about connection, and like we use vocabulary that's a bit uncommon for most people. Like it's about resonance, also not a great word for most people. And it's like you can also talk about how can we listen a bit more to each other, and how can you have better friendships? Like not everybody gets excited about nerding what relating means in the same way that I and we do. But I think most people want better friendships, and they want to have less conflicts with their partner, and these kinds of things. I think is what appeals to most of us, and that's also where it gets the most tricky, which most people who have done these kinds of practices for years know that it's like one thing is to sit in a workshop space with strangers or people you've met through the practice or whatever, and be really intimate and honest and get in and out of of dynamics or conflicts. But then you go home and you try to talk to your parents, and it's like just a completely different game. Yeah.
I'm thinking about conversations I tried to have with friends and family that first year I started circling, and just the way that I would just so unskillfully get us into territory that was probably not more connecting. It was a lot edgier and more intense, but also equally it was so much more me showing up. And yeah, I'm with that. I'm really delighted by this yoga comparison you make, where there is a thread between doing these very basic movements that just feel better, and connecting that to, if you want to keep going down the road, it's this full path to enlightenment, but but there's like a place for everyone along that path of how much of yoga they want in their lives. That's a really great analogy.
I think about what I remember was one of my original intentions of going to my first authentic relating, like, games night. And it was about having a more intimate relationship with my children. And for those first months, as I was getting into these deep, like, intense practices with this community that I had just met, and then coming home and trying it out. And in the beginning, I remember thinking, like, oh, I'm just, like, making a mess, or this is really challenging. But very quickly on, I started noticing my children using this new way of interacting. My 3-year-old son making clean requests, or saying, "I have a story that you're upset at me, mommy," or stuff like that. And so even in the beginning, even though it felt like, oh, it's going to take forever for me to get from community to the actual, like, seeing the benefit of these practices in my relationships, it was very quickly that just shifting a little bit of language, or shifting a little bit of the way that I was showing up, was having this massive impact on not just my kids, but all of my relationships. Even though it felt a little bit crunchy in the beginning, like, don't circle me, mom.
Yeah. I don't know. I think
my teen now is like, I don't. She's like, can we just have a normal conversation and not, like, not be about feelings or.
Yeah, I don't know. I think ultimately just slowing down a bit makes such a big difference, right? And that is part of all of these practices. It's like, can we take the tempo down a little bit so we notice a bit more of what is going on? And when that becomes sort of ingrained in sort of your life, that's just a game changer. And then there's a lot of technique on top of that is helpful as well. But ultimately, I think the presencing, slowing down a bit, is at the core of most of the work we do, because that's where we start noticing that the relating is happening. So
yeah. So then, sorry, I'm just now thinking about, like, back to the project of spreading the word. And we have some ways that we've all imagined, creating user guides or videos, and we have respective YouTube channels, we have podcast content, writing from the first person perspective, hearing from practitioners, and I imagine that word of mouth is a massive, a massive way that this will spread. So I'm curious what other ways, what is the thing that will break it open.
Well, I think something that's important, at least, is to realize that we're not as special as we think we are. Again, there's this complexity where it's like, okay, I've been pretty fucking deep in circling and surrender leadership, and I think there is something really special there that I haven't seen in other places. But on the other hand, like, it's not like people haven't been doing this for the last 100 years in all kinds of shapes and forms. It's like there's a long lineage of positive psychology and all kinds of personal development stuff that is very closely related to what we now call relating arts. And of course, if we go back further, there's plenty of spiritual traditions that also have a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. And there's a lot of this stuff in the organizational development world, like in companies and businesses. People are working with presence-based leadership and relational leadership, stuff like that. So it is out there in some way, but I think some of the challenge can be, and it's always a challenge because we want to create a boundary, right? We want to say that what we are doing is something. At least that's my challenge with like calling something relating arts is like, well, then something is also not relating arts. And where is the line? But there's something with making it permeable so that it can connect with all the places in society where people are actually already doing these things. And that's something that excites me about this project, is to sort of gather more and more stuff that is related, that is connected. There is an ecology. And I think that is relatively new. I haven't seen that done before, where it's like, yeah, there's circling and authentic relating, but there's also Zen coaching. There's also the radical honesty crew. And there's actually quite a few other practices that are, some of them have come out of these, but some of them are actually before. And sort of collecting it in one place and being like, okay, all of us seem to be doing something pretty similar. And yeah, that there's a potential tragedy here where we will start fighting each other over details and nuance rather than being like, there's a very big commons here, very big sameness that at least we can agree upon. And I'm definitely trapped in that myself. It's like I can get super sort of stuck in myself and charged when I see someone talk a lot about presence and listening, and I don't see it in the way they hold space, or like they don't walk the talk. It feels like sacrilegious for me, and I think I should lighten up a bit on that and be more like, yeah, maybe it's good that at least we're trying. Or I don't know. There's a balancing there that I don't quite know how to do.
Well, what you say points to something very interesting that's going on, where I think those of us in like the circling community often view it as circling will be the tip of the spear of this global relating revolution. But actually, there's something so much more mysterious going on, where that revolution is happening in all of these different ways, in all of these different places, without people even being aware of each other. There's just the conditions right now are such that human consciousness is becoming really interested in presence to our relational field, or just being more aware of how we're impacting each other all the time. Like, that's maybe even just more, I bet in the military and in corporations where they're doing programs that are more focused on how we relate, they're probably not that worried about mystical union with the totality of being. They're probably more worried about, like, this actually makes life easier, and it makes working together easier, and it makes accomplishing real world goals easier, and it helps on all these levels. So it's just interesting hearing you talk about all of these groups who might not even be aware of each other are part of the same revolution.
Yeah, so this is exciting. I just keep on thinking about my work with hospice and the training that I went through, and I'm like, oh, they're really just teaching like relational practices. They're teaching about boundaries. They're teaching about owning your experience. They're teaching about not getting confused about caretaking or trying to change someone's pain if they're in a deep state of pain. So I say that because there's almost this invitation like that I want to offer to anyone listening of just kind of looking outward, like, where are you doing this in your life right now? Because you probably are. There's probably some way that you are practicing the relating arts with someone, and just bringing like more of an awareness or a consciousness. Like, that is such a revolutionary idea to kind of just turn outward and go like, oh, I am practicing this and I didn't even know it. That's because it's really just like, oh, becoming aware that I am doing that sometimes, and maybe like, oh, when I do that sometimes these things happen. What if I do it more than sometimes, and how could I do it more than sometimes more often? Oh, I'll go to this website that has a guide, and and then there's this massive kind of exponential growth. Yeah. Oh, I get so excited.
And I like it as like it points to sort of awareness being at the core again. That like as soon as it starts becoming more available for me that I am in relationship,
right?
Well, then I also have more choice in the matter. I can do something new.
Yeah.
But when I'm not aware of that, or I'm just in a more contracted existence, it doesn't become available. That, oh, there's something different I can do. I become sort of a victim of the circumstances. I think a big part of this work is sort of the empowerment of like, oh, it's the one way I say it is like my karma becomes available for me. I start seeing that, oh, this is my karma, that I'm showing up in this particular way, and I can do it in a different way. And it's as simple as that in some way, but the becoming aware part is a bit tricky. Often we need help for that. And I love the hospicing thing. Like, one of the best books on circling and authentic relating I found is written by a Danish psychotherapist and priest who has written a book for nurses about how to talk to hospice patients. And it's just a very short book, and it's perfect. It's just so on point. And I was so happy when I found it because it just came out of a completely different world.
Right.
And then I later read some of Catherine Manick's work, who has also worked with hospice, which has a lot of the same qualities.
Something that comes up for me around that is, how do we want to relate when it really matters? And I think when someone is in the process of dying, it really matters how we can feel. It's very palpable that it's important how we're relating. Yeah. And the deathbed is often the place where the most vulnerability and like long hidden things are revealed there at the deathbed. And there's feel heartbreak right now just thinking about how much of that hiddenness was not required this whole time. That we can actually bring that urgency and see the importance in how we're relating before it's the 11th hour.
Right.
Yeah, and so I guess I'm sitting with that and feeling that sense of urgency is here for me in the question of how do we get 1 million people turned on this year to the relating arts. It feels important. It feels urgent.
It matters.
It matters.
Yeah, I feel touched by that. Just the picture of sort of, we're likely all going to have some sense of regret on our deathbed that we didn't show up with what was the most important for us. And yeah, it brings me in touch with a lot of grief, just that sense of like, also that people will die in our lives and we won't have, well, likely won't have told them that we love them in the way we really want to. And I think that is a very common experience for human beings these days. And maybe it's unavoidable, but I think there's something with these practices that at least have brought me closer to sort of showing up live in my everyday life with the things that are deeply important for me. And then I still notice contraction. It's like the work doesn't end. It's like not, at least not in my experience. But it's less like just getting closer and closer to live in, oh, it's actually important for me to be with you. Like there's a richness here, and I want to be with you, and I love you. Like, yeah. And it does feel important to at least invite for that. That is like, there's a potential here for more life.
Yeah. I think even for me, when I'm not, it's like about this light being shined on. And I think you mentioned around karma, it's like a light, even when I can't say the thing, the light is at least shined on, oh, this is the thing I can't say, which I didn't know I couldn't say until the light was shined. And so then I have my marching orders, like, okay, this is a good place to work, on this place where I really struggle with, commitment or with fully receiving love from others. Like those are my real areas right now. Which I feel so grateful to at least know, even though there's still very much a work in progress. At least there's some, a little bit out of the shadow, a little bit out of the unconscious, like a little bit brought to the surface.
It's just so cool. In yoga, you might be like, I'm really trying to get my whatever crane pose. I just don't have it yet, and I'm working towards it, and it gets you into the studio all the time. And in these arts, it's like, it's like, I'm not quite able to own my difficulty with receiving affection. Like, or, I'm just not quite receiving it. And I need to, get on the mat and really work on receiving love. It's just what wild horses couldn't pull me away from this. It's so cool.
I remember all the times I tried to do headstand, and when I finally did it, like the way that my body's saying like, oh, I can, this thing I've been trying to get the balance just right, and then my legs stood up all the way, and it was like, that the satisfaction or something of that.
With this vision of bringing in so many more people, or doing this work to spread the word of the relating arts, I'm curious, while you've outlined, I think, really well what the relating arts can bring people, I'm also curious what a lot of people could bring the relating arts. Like, what happens to the movement if we grow by 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, 1 billion people doing these practices?
Yeah. It's you talked about a revolution earlier, and I almost went into like, I'm not sure how much of a revolution we're talking here. Isn't it more like an evolution of some kind, that something is growing? But now I wanted to say that, well, in some way it is revolutionary to do these things, because it runs counter to a hardness that exists in our culture, at least in my experience, that there's something with inviting more silence, inviting more awareness, inviting more intimacy, inviting more relating, that seems to be a revolutionary act these days, like anti-polarizing. Yeah, it runs like, at least my experience of culture is that everything is becoming faster and faster, and there's something with that is done in all of these practices, which is like, yeah, when things start becoming going faster, it usually means conflict and trouble. So like most of what we do is so take out the speed a little bit of what is going on, so we can actually go like, what's going on over there, what's really being said. um, and I think that could be quite significant in many places around the world. And then of course there's all the power stuff that constitutes what we have, that makes it really difficult. Um, but I think in many small ways, these practices, like having more people doing these practices, could make a pretty big difference. And
yeah, the word that comes to my mind is creativity. It's like seeing things at this slower speed, you can see more. There's more there to and so, having all of these people coming in, it's like slowing down is like an opening up, like, oh, there's all of these solutions we didn't know there were, or ideas that we couldn't hear because we were moving too quickly, or because people were yelling and screaming what their idea was. And it's like that slowness of, oh, that's what you meant when you said that. Or, that's what, yeah, that is the solution that you had that nobody heard. So beautiful.
yeah, or like, oh, you're really afraid. It sounds like you're really afraid of something. It's like, what is that fear, and can you tell me about it? Like that seems to be such a big, at least that's screaming at me when we just had elections in Denmark, and I was like, God, there's a lot of fear here, like, and the way it presents is through people posing as very powerful and as very sort of, I have the solutions and we just need to do this and then everything will fucking work out. I'm like, like okay, seems to be a lot of fear and a lot of need for softness and compassion. And yeah.
I'm now imagining a political season, like a presidential election here in the U.S., where the candidates are using the relating arts to really connect. And instead of having the frame of debate, it's the frame of trying to really see where each other are coming from and what's really up and what is the wisdom each person is bringing. It's funny when you describe it. It sounds so absurd, as if that would ever happen, and then also obviously superior in every way for finding solutions. And yeah.
Yeah, of course. There's a wild complexity to it that makes it very tricky, obviously. But I I think I'm more like, well, I'm a parent now, and that feels quite special. And I would want myself and other parents to just be a little bit better at talking to our children, and being with them and tuning to them, showing up with them, listening to them, being boundaried, um, and yeah, if we do that work, likely the coming generations will be a little bit better at these things. Um, and they already seem to be, by the way. It's like kids these days do seem to be a lot smarter emotionally than I was when I was 18, for sure. So I have a lot of hope there. Um,
Hope. I like the taste of that. I wonder here, as we're nearing the end of our time, if you could share more hope that you have around the relating arts and these practices and growing.
my hope would be that we, and not as in we as a specific group, but a we as in a movement or an evolution, an organism of some kind. There's a growing happening that is spreading something, um, that feels new and old at the same time. It's like I've started becoming interested in philosophy again, and when you start reading old philosophers, you find the same stuff that we think we have invented in the last 30, 40 years or whatever. And it's like, and it just stands out for me. Like these ideas are not new. People have been talking about them for ages in all the ways. But there's something with how to bringing it into practice in simple forms that I think we've gotten better at. Um, and my hope would be that we can somehow manage to give this stuff away in very simple formats that makes it easy for people to sort of get inspired, try something out, and and then with the whole sort of business part of it as well, that there are courses, there are people that are really good at this that you can go to if you want to upgrade or if you want a deep training, you can do that. But you can also just do the relating game that you can buy in your local bookstore, um, and that's normal. It's like there's nothing weird about it. Obviously, you want to have nicer, more intimate conversations with your friends. Like, why wouldn't you? And th- there's something there that where I see a really good sell. It's like, why wouldn't you want to have more intimacy with the people you love? Um, and and I think mm, maybe one thing that has been a problem that is part of what I want to try to solve with the Relating Arts project. It is that there's a bit too much distance between that sort of very everyday, sort of obviously everyone wants more love in their lives and better relationships with the people they're close to, and then take this training or go to this weekend workshop to figure out what it means to relate intimately. Like, there's a bit too much distance there, and what are the in-between things that can be given away or invited to? And maybe, like, I've had this idea of, like, should we have a yearly day of relating where we encourage every leader of these things around the world to do a workshop, or some kind of open thing that is very easily accessible for people. And maybe even that is taking it into too weird a territory. Maybe it's more like call your friend day. Like, call someone that you love and tell them that you love them day. So bringing it down to a level where it's actually very everyday like. And then there's practices. Like, it's also something we can become better at. And there's something with how to bridge. It's not really a gap, but like how to include both. It's very everyday like, it's very human, it's completely normal. It is us. It is in our DNA in some way to relate and to love. And we can learn how to do it better. That seems to be the crux.
It's a beautiful note to end on. Peter, where can people find your work? Share with us your links and.
Yeah, there's relatingarts.com. That is the work we've been talking about now. There's quite a few people on there. There's descriptions of practices. There's some guides. There's some videos. There's some events. Some of the events are mine. Some of the events are from other people that are on the page. It's mostly in Europe. All of it is in Europe, and then there's a bit of online stuff. If you want to find me, I'm at petermunthe-kaas.com. And yeah, you can read about my sort of coaching, teaching, that kind of stuff there if you're interested.
With that, the container is now closed.